guys to Implausible Nature. We are streaming tonight to talk about the new detachments.
Oh
There
yeah.
are 7 of them, except for really 6 because Gladius is basically unchanged. So yeah, so we're really not going to talk about Gladius because we already know it. But what we are going to talk about is these 6 new ones, some of which Bob and I are pretty excited about.
Yes.
Pretty excited. So, which one do you want to start with, Bob? I feel like we
Well,
should kind of hold the excitement a little bit. Maybe start with the
yes.
one that we're a little less excited about.
Yeah, I'll wait till the very end for my most excited one. My meme lists are already flowing like crazy. So we can start off with Anvil Siege Force.
The Imperial Fists one.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So this one has a special rule called the Shield of Imperium. What it does is it gives all the weapons heavy, and anything that's already heavy gains 1 to wound.
Which is actually really good.
Yes, it can be. The thing is, with this one, it relies on standing still, which doesn't play the game very well.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really trying to table your opponent, which is
Guard
pretty
players can tell you
tough.
all about that.
So yeah, um, but there is some cool things that you can do with it.
That being
So
said, like, yeah, it rewards standing still, obviously. Um, but I think with this, what you will have is your key units that will try to stand still as much as possible, and
yeah,
then the rest of your army, like nobody cares if your incursors or infiltrators have +1 to wound or heavy or not, right? Where you want like your hellblasters and your um, uh, even your desolation marines, if anybody's even still taking those things, your lancers with +1 to wound. Okay, thank you. Now you're wounding, pretty much almost every unit in the game on 2s, which is pretty gross.
yeah,
Um,
or Valiants
or
after
Valiants.
losing the reroll to wounds.
That helps them a lot because they're only strength 9 and strength 10 on the las. So, it's one of those things that it really definitely helps the Valiant out a lot. Although the Valiant is, again, you got to move it because it's short range. But once you get it in position, hopefully you can just sit there and blast away. So,
Yeah,
um, I think, like you said, it rewards standing still, but you don't need like your whole army to just stand still the whole game and try to kill everything. I mean, you could do that, I guess, but you still got to play the
yeah.
objectives.
So, as like always, well, I wouldn't say like always, but there's going to be 4 enhancements for each and 6 stratagems. One of the stratagems for each of these detachments we're not going to even talk about because it's armor contempt. It's for everybody.
Yep,
We all know what that does.
yep.
So,
Which I'm
so
glad
let's
they
start.
included that in all of them because
Yeah,
it's a really good strat and it's really kind of quintessentially Space Marine.
yeah. So the first enhancement for Anvil Siege Force is Abdominal Fury, which gives you a 2+ roll to return to life, but its a requirement is that you're Gravis. And then you come back to full wounds, which is kind of
Pretty
nice.
good. It's pretty good.
We also have Stoke Defender, which gives a 6++ Feel No Pain to a unit and halves the OC for when you're battle shocked instead
Instead
of
of
going
0.
straight to 0.
Is it
So
a
that
Feel
one
No
is
Pain or
really
is it
good.
a Invul?
It's a Feel No Pain.
Feel No Pain. Okay, nice, nice.
So that one's very, very good. Um, Maybe consider some things with the Anvil Siege Force, but then you got Fleet Commander, which is the orbital strike mortal wound type thing where you select a spot on the board and then after the first turn, so you can put a second turn and anything within that 12-inch line gets a D3 mortal wounds on a 3+.
Yeah. I actually like this. I think it's really fun and fluffy, honestly. It's only 15 points. So, how many times have we had 15 points left over in our list? Black Templars are fleet-based chapter, right? So it works for us too. But I think the coolest thing about this is like previously the orbital bombardment was just never very good because your opponent it was too easy for your opponent to run away from it. So here now you pick a point, and then after the next turn, you pick another point and draw a line anywhere between between those 2 points, and anything in between them gets tagged. So I think that is a much better way to do it, and it also recalls to mind the orbital bombardment that you got in Dawn of War. If anybody remembers the original Dawn of War, when you called in an orbital strike, it wasn't just like a thing, it was like a line, like it hit the ground and then moved. So that's how I imagine it. And I think this is a really fun, and for 15 points, like if you get 15 points left over, like just take this because it's fun.
Yeah. Steve asks if a character dies from precision and it reses, is he still part of his unit?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if there's still precision shots left over after he is resurrected, they can go continue to be applied to him. So,
So the final enhancement is going to be Architect of War, which is ignores cover. Um, as a character, I don't think that's too terribly useful because there's not very many weapons that characters hold that
I think it
have
does give
ranged.
the unit ignore cover.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, still,
Even still, according to Goonhammer, it's 25 points. Um,
yeah, it's
that's pretty
kind of
pricey
spending.
for one unit to ignore cover. I mean, cover's pretty good in 10th, but I don't know that I'm going to intentionally spend 25 points to give this to a unit. And what unit would I really even give it to that a character could attach to? That, you know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah,
not. Maybe Hellblasters? I don't know. I can't think of a unit outside of them that, or maybe Grav Devs. But I can't really think of a unit outside of them that really that needs to, or can have a character, I should say, and wants to ignore cover. Like, you know,
and it's really tough for especially the firstborn stuff because most of those characters got axed. So,
well, from what I understand, all the uh, firstborn ones that like got killed are unified into a single data sheet. So like a captain can now join a tactical squad,
mm,
regardless of if he's Primaris or not. So that's the way I understand it.
good deal. All
So,
right, stratagems.
yeah, overall, what do you think of the enhancements, Bob?
I really like Stoic Defender a lot. That gives a unit that potentially a
Hmm.
close combat durable unit really, really hard to kill.
Hmm.
But again, the detachment likes for you to stay still. So you really want something that's going to do a ton of damage um, at
Yeah.
ranged while you're standing still. And really, that's probably going to be something like um, maybe Hellblasters, something like that. But you almost want them to die so that they can shoot again. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
going to be tough.
I kind of like. I do appreciate the Indomitable Fury one. I realize it's Gravis only, but the thing that I like about it is that it you can stick it on the previously, like, what are you doing with this Gravis captain dude who doesn't really have a unit to kind of go with, um,
Yep.
and he now he can go with the much improved aggressors, and you have a decent melee unit. But at the same time, uh, I'd rather have Stoic Defender on them to give them the plus the 6++ feel no pain. So
Yeah.
it's like it's you kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like it sounds fun, but at the same time, there's another better option anyway. So
Yeah, I mean, you could combo like Architect of War with like an Apothecary on Hellblasters to give them what essentially is +1 AP.
hmm yeah,
There's things like that, so you can combo them with that. So it's useful, but again, 25 points is better. So like the main one that sticks out to me is Stoic Defender.
yeah,
So stratagems here: rigid discipline, fall back 6 inches at the end of the fight phase. But you have to fall back into your own deployment zone or onto an objective. So
mm,
there is some restrictions on this, but it is very, very good way to get out of combat you if you don't want to be there, and it allows you to do it in their enemy phase or enemy fight phase. So then you can shoot at them the next turn. So
yeah,
strategically, that is really good if you're in the right part of the board.
yeah. The you're probably going to be falling back towards an objective more often than wholly within your deployment zone, unless it's a unit that's either on
Yep.
the edge or very close to your deployment zone. Um, but it's still pretty neat that it allows you to kind of just sort of disengage with a unit that either wants to shoot or doesn't want to be in combat with whatever it is you want because you want to shoot that thing instead. Um, so yeah.
Yep. Now this one is the big one that you really kind of want to take to combo with the detachment.
hmm
Battle Jill Recall. So it gives the unit sustained hits 1 and critical hits on 5+ if it's stationary. So you combo that with the Shield of the Imperium, which gives heavy, or if it's already heavy, +1 to wound.
Yep.
And you're going to be doing a massive amount of damage with this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, there's a lot of big hitters out there. Hellblasters are everyone's favorite indirect. Uh, Forgetting them their name right at the top of my
Desolation.
head. Yeah, Desolation.
Yeah.
Even though they're expensive,
Yeah.
but yeah,
This
that could
this
be.
this detachment makes them not quite as painful to take because they do gain a good amount of stuff because they just really want to sit in the back and shoot all game, on top of a piece of terrain or something. Um, so um, so yeah, and the cool thing about this is unlike Bolter Discipline, which by the way is now called Fire Discipline. Um, they don't have to have a character attached to them with that thing in order to get it. You just spend a CP on them, and they get sustained hits and on fives, and then they're also getting. I believe their guns are heavy already, right? So they're going to be hitting, getting +1 to wound, at least on those cracks anyway. So um, it makes them a little less painful to take at 200 points per five.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Hail of Vengeance, a unit that lost a model in shooting, can fire at an opponent that shot it. So that one's really good
yeah, it's
as well.
basically the Necron strat. You get to shoot back at something that killed some of your dudes. So
It's basically giving Hellblasters to anything in your list,
yep,
provided they could shoot at it.
yeah,
Then we got No Threat Too Great, which is reroll wounds against a monster and vehicle, which is always a good thing.
yep,
Then Not One Step Backwards. This one is low key, super strong.
yeah.
Double the OC of a unit on an objective. So
But it forces it to
strategically,
remain stationary that turn, which
yes, that's true.
honestly you want to anyway. That's hardly a detriment, in my opinion. So, because if you're already on the objective, you want to stay on the objective. You're not going to be like, oh, let me run off. Like it's not. You're not going to do that.
Yep.
So, so yeah. I think you're right. That one is it's not flashy, but it's gonna win you games.
Yep. As far as synergies, though, so we're going to kind of do this in stages on each one. So we're going to talk about the enhancements, the stratagems, then we'll do some synergies with each as
Yeah.
well. So as far as synergies go, the only one that I can really think of that works well with this detachment, unless you just want to take Black Templar shooty, which many of us don't want to, but it's there, is the Firstborn Crusader squads with heavy infantry or heavy weaponry.
Hmm.
So they're dirtball cheap. You can take a whole bunch of them. They're battle line, and they're going to be gaining heavy on the stuff that isn't heavy, and then you'll like las cannons or plasma cannons or whatever you're taking with those gain the +1 to wound, which will actually make them reasonably dangerous against things. So yeah, that's a good synergy for that particular unit. But otherwise, you have just the generic aggressors, hellblasters, intercessors, desolation squads, heavy intercessor, stern guard. All of those are really good with this detachment.
Yeah.
But those are just generic units, right? So they don't really mesh into
Stern guard with
our
+1
stuff.
to wound is delicious, especially
Yes.
after the nerf to oaths. Um, so here's the thing: like, just because the detachment favors like standing still and shooting, doesn't mean that like that's the like I said, that doesn't mean that has to be the only units you take, right? Now, granted, there's not really any buffs to melee here. Um, which is something that Righteous Crusaders has in spades for us, which means that you have to rely on the strength of the datasheet alone, plus the generic Space Marine buffs, as it were. So, um, you know, which is fine depending on um, what units you take. I think Sword Bros can absolutely stand on their datasheet alone.
Yep.
Uh, Even Crusaders, to a certain extent, can stand on their data sheet. Like, they're not going to be as deadly as they could be in Righteous Crusaders, but they're still dirt cheap for the amount of attacks that they throw out. And so yeah, you're going to skew a little bit more shooting oriented in this style of list, but it really just kind of depends on what your playstyle is, right? What kind of units you like. And I think uh, there's some folks who have been asking for a long time, hey, how do I use heavy intercessors in Black Templars? This is a great detachment for them because they've got long range guns. They make a great backfield objective sitter that's hard to kill, and now they're going to get +1 to wound on strength 5 bolters. So they're pretty solid in this, I think. So
Mhm.
I think it really just kind of boils down to your playstyle. Does this detachment really interest me? Not particularly, but it has some neat things. I think it's great for Imperial Fists. I mean, we all know that's what it's really themed after is Imperial Fists. So much better than previously. You do good against buildings. Yeah, because who runs buildings? Like, what? Such a stupid rule. So I'm glad that that they focused on like what actually would make sense for an army like Imperial Fists. And their son's adorned too. So I mean, I don't know. Don't feel bad if you like this detachment and want to run it. Is basically what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. So I mean, there is some good things with it. Like, for example, you could take a 10-man Primaris Sword Brethren squad with Helbricht and a Castellan. Give Stoic Defender to the Castellan.
Yeah,
Then you give
you still
the
got to feel no
Primaris Sword
pain.
Brethren Feel No Pain.
Yep,
And then you still got a deadly unit.
yep.
Things like that. Or you could do the same thing with maybe a a blob of Primaris Crusaders.
Crusaders. And don't forget, I
So
mean, Grimaldus still hands out a Feel No Pain for a blob of Crusaders too. So I mean, there's ways to increase durability. Like our characters are also have ways for us to increase our melee, like Grimaldus especially, Helbricht. You know, so you know, there are ways for us to do it with our own units. We just have to be intentional about making sure that we're including those units when we take a detachment like this. So, overall, Bob, what's your rating on this detachment as far as like a you know, A through D scale of how good it is?
C plus.
C plus.
Um, I think that the fact that it requires you to get the most out of it, you have to be stationary, and you have to tech into heavy weapons to really get the most out of everything. Um, really kind of hurts it because you need to be mobile. The the secondaries and even the primary missions are favored towards getting to the middle of the board as fast as you can and doing the things there. And not being able to do that with a good chunk of your board or being uh, adaptable with all of your units is really kind of a detriment. Now, it can do a lot of spike damage, which is very good, and that's what keeps it on the plus side. I would say maybe even B minus, but again, it favors one side of the the turn the shooting phase too
Mhm.
much, in my opinion, to make it really truly adaptable.
I'm gonna go with B minus for me, and the reason is that spike damage, like you said. If you get your stuff in position early and quickly, and have good, good positioning of your units, and you take enough other things that can help control the middle of the board for you, you can really annihilate the crap out of stuff with things that really have no business doing that much damage, right? So,
Mhm.
um, so yeah. But overall, otherwise, I pretty much agree with your assessment. So,
Well, move on to the next one, which is very interesting for me. Will I say it's probably one of the two most competitive ones? Probably not, but I like it a lot. And honestly, we're probably going to see some lists out there, so be prepared to face this list
yep,
because it potentially could be very good.
yep,
And that is the Ironstorm Spearhead.
yep.
Their
The
detachment rule is Armored Wrath, which gives
very
you
originally named Iron Storm.
yeah. You get a choice of a reroll one hit, wound, or damage roll per unit per turn, which is phenomenal.
Yep,
Phenomenal.
yep,
Especially when you put it with low shot weapons. Um, Goonhammer touched on this a little bit, but like Lancers and Ballistas are very good with this. But
yep,
any unit that gets a free reroll is really good.
yep.
But getting into the enhancement, this is what really makes the army tick. Target Augury Web. It's
Hmm.
pretty expensive at 40 points, but all vehicles within 6 inches gained lethal hits. So previously, you would need to have a character attached to a unit to get the lethal hits, and it's only one unit. This is an aura.
Yep,
So what you can have is a vehicle bubble in the middle of the board or wherever you want to do it, and they all get lethal hits. That is ridiculously strong.
yep. So
So,
I'm
yeah.
betting. What do you think the over under on how quickly this gets nerfed to one unit instead of an aura? I'm
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with as soon as the next data slate, which is in like less than 3 months.
I don't know. So like I've built some lists already and they weren't very Black Templary and
No, they
Cox was
weren't.
like they're like looks like you're
You're like how do I make how do I make this more Black Templary? And I think I just sent you a picture of like an Iron Hand or something like that.
I was like, but like you throw in three infiltrators, like three ballistises, three invictors, 3 redemptors, and like I think it came out to that was pretty close, and then you get like a tech marine,
You had
and
two
then
tech
maybe
marines in
something
there.
else.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
You're like, how do
what are
I?
you gonna do?
Yeah, you're like, well, how do I make this more template? I'm like, okay, drop each one of those dreadnoughts each, and get some crusaders, and then maybe like some sword bros or something, because it
That's
was just all vehicles. And didn't you have some lancers? No, you didn't have any. You were using the ballistas instead of the lancers because,
yeah.
which was kind of surprising, but I guess they have one more shot than a. I don't know why you chose them over. Well, because you had another guy with the dreadnought thing. There's so moving on with it. There's a another uh I think there was another one that was, well, maybe not. Um, I thought there was one that was specific to dreadnoughts, and that's why you had all the dreadnoughts, but I'm not seeing it now, so maybe I'm just wrong.
Well, there is. There it is. We'll get to it. So that's really strong. But we also have Adepta the Ombasiah, which blanks damage from a failed save once per round,
Yep.
as long as it's within 6 inches of vehicle. Similar to the old Infiltrator rule,
Yeah.
the
Or
Helix
the
Gauntlet rule.
Emperor's Champion's current rule.
Yep,
Yep.
exactly. We have the Master of the Machine War, vehicle within 6 inches of the bear shoots even if advance or fell back. This is how you get everything across the board really fast.
Yep.
So before there was a problem with dreadnought lists that they're slow, relatively speaking. They still move, like 9 or 10 inches usually. But you need to get across the board really fast, right? This allows your tech marine to run in advance with those guys and keep those vehicles within 6 inches, and then they can shoot when they advance and fell back.
Yeah.
So that's really, really strong.
Yeah.
Really strong. And then
Yeah.
you have, go ahead.
No, I was just say the fallback part is a little niche because vehicles can shoot in combat anyway. But the being able to shoot after advancing is really good. Really good.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of synergies with that, um, especially if you're using Phobos and Invictors.
Hmm.
So, I mean, they can already scout.
Yep.
Um, so, and then you got the Flesh is Weak, which is a simple 4+ feel no pain. Which, I mean, feel no pains are good, but I think we're going to be taking one of those two, Master of the Machine or Target Augury.
Yep. Definitely.
The stratagems, you have the Power of the Machine Spirit. The vehicle can shoot back at opponent if it's reduced below half strength. Very good. Very, very good. Let's be honest. All your or the vast majority in this particular style of list is going to be vehicle based. So you're going to be going below half strength, and you're going to get some shots out of it before it dies. So
Yep.
potentially,
Yep.
so that's going to be a good one. Vengeful Animus is blow yourself up.
Troll
Strategically,
vengeance.
that's good.
So
You
yeah.
have Ancient Fury. The Walker, i.e., Dreadnought, gets 1+ move, toughness, armor save, leadership, OC, and 1 to the hit rolls. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm really wishing they didn't get rid of the Contemptor Dreadnoughts and move them to Legends, because
Yeah.
this would just be ridiculous. This detachment would be super ridiculous with Contemptors.
Yeah, it would, and that's probably part of the reason why they're gone. Not to mention the fact that they're a Horus Heresy unit. So yeah, there's some really powerful buffs in this. Overall, the more buffs than not. Some really useful stratagems. Um, so yeah. What is first of all, don't be Bob and come up with a list that doesn't have a single melee unit in it, except for Redemptors. I guess Invictors too. But like an infantry unit, we got to have some Black Templary things in there.
So I
Um,
did make another list. I did make another list. Yeah, let's see. I can share it in the chat
um,
while we're going on. You
yeah,
got the list, so I'll find it real fast and
yeah. I did not have a
I'll give
chance
you.
to review it. Was it the one you sent me today?
I made it different. It's more Black Templary.
That's good.
So at least people
That's
can
good.
give like an idea of the type of thing that I'm thinking about when I
Yeah.
see this detachment. So
But
while I'm finding this, you can go on with the stratagems.
yeah. So Ancient Fury. This is the thing I was thinking of. Walker gets +1 move, toughness, armor save, leadership, OC, and to hit rolls. So this is really good, especially on a dreadnought maybe that's been bracketed, or is suffering -1 to hit from something. Really, really good stratagem that you obviously, if you have 6 dreadnoughts, you're gonna have to pick one. But it's absolutely worth it, and it's for the whole battle round, by the way. Yeah, that toughness and armor save really can help it out. Basically, yes, they have a 2+ armor save. No, you can't make ones pass, but it basically gives them for a battle round permanent AOC, which you can then use AOC on them as well, to make them ignore 2 points of AP, which is pretty good. Um, then we have Unbowed Conviction. Unbowed Conviction lets the unit ignore any and all modifiers to characteristics, rolls, or tests. This is another way to let a second vehicle or dreadnought sort of ignore that -1 to hit from being knocked down to its bracket, and suffering that -1 to hit. So um, it's uh, it's pretty good. I don't know if it's vehicle only. It does say it does have to be below starting strength. It does not say on Goonhammer whether it is vehicles only or not. I'd have to go and look that up. And see if I can figure that out. Either way, really good, solid stratagem. And then the last one, Mercy is Weakness. Punishes wounded enemies, giving one of your units sustained hits when it attacks an enemy that is below starting strength. And if you choose to shoot at choose to shoot with a vehicle, you also score crit hits on a 5-up. So pairing that with Target Augury is a delicious little combo that will have your opponents screaming, "Why are Iron Hands broken?" yet again.
Yeah, it's very very strong.
Yeah.
It's very very strong. So we kind of talked about those, but excuse me, some synergies. I'm like, this is really how you take a dreadnought or a vehicle heavy army as Black Templars. So I posted up the list there, um, but you can sprinkle in some Primaris Crusader Squad into the list so they can scout up to uh, differing objectives right away, so that you can focus on your dreadnoughts and the vehicles and doing what they do is kill stuff.
Mhm.
So they're very good at that. So that way, you have something durable. That's something Black Templar oriented to get onto an objective and play that game. Because let's be honest, we don't want to be Imperial Knights. Imperial Knights are very good at killing things. They do similar things, but what they struggle against is holding objectives. So
Yeah.
that's what you really kind of need
Yeah.
in your list.
Something to note too that's pretty cool is the stratagem affects invictors. It's not dreadnoughts, it's walkers keyword,
Hmm.
which you can use it on a invictor, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean it's great, really, with anything that you really kind of want that has a reroll to shoot, wound, or damage is going to be really good in this list.
Yeah.
Um, but especially anything that has innate rerolls.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but again, it also favors shooting over close combat. Um,
Yeah.
this detachment does. So
Yep.
there's also, you're making that conscious choice
Yep.
to do that.
Steve asks, AOC, Smoke, and Ancient Fury ignores 3 points of AP. Unfortunately, no, you cannot use AOC and Smoke against the same attack. The reason for that is the wording on both is just after. So when something says just after, you resolve its effects immediately, interrupting anything that's currently going on. So by the time that you've finished resolving those effects, it's no longer just after your opponent has selected targets. However, if you were in cover, cover would like actual cover would stack with those. So.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So overall, what's your grade on this one, Bob?
I have to give this one a B plus, just because of the fun potential of this.
Yeah.
Competitively, I think this is going to be if you're looking pure Space Marines, not worrying about the Black Templars in this, it's probably going to be an A.
Yeah.
But from a Black Templars perspective, if you want to make it Black Templar E, we have to make some concessions and take some units into the list that aren't necessarily synergizing very well with the list. Um, so I think that's going to be
Yeah.
a B
Yeah.
plus.
Competitively, definitely an A. BT wise, yeah, I would agree, a B plus, maybe even a B for me.
Yeah.
But again, just depends on your play style, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, all right. So, moving along, we've got the Firestorm Assault Force, which is the Salamanders detachment. And this one focuses on close range firepower, which, ironically, I think is something that is a thing Black Templars do, sort of excel at. Is firepower they like is typically short range. At least that's how I see them. So I think
Mm-hmm.
this could potentially work with us. Plus, we like flamers too, and we like to burn the witches. So
This is going to be a very, very, very popular detachment.
definitely. So its detachment ability is close range eradication. All weapons gain assault, and if you're shooting a target within 12 inches, you get +1 strength. That's pretty spicy. I gotta say, having assault means that you can advance with the whole army and
Mm-hmm.
shoot everything with no penalty. Gotta like that. It also means that you can do actions with anything, which is nice as you advance up the board. And then +1 strength within 12 inches is really nice. There's a lot of bonuses to things that we want to be within 12 inches, right? So, a lot of our pistols are 12 inches or less. When we're in melee, our pistols are all going to have +1 strength. Um, our rapid fire stuff, so Stern Guard, our hurricane bolters on a Land Raider Crusader, etc., are going to have that extra pip of strength, which is really nice.
Yep.
Enhancements. Champion of Humanity. A tactics model ignores any and all modifiers to characteristics, rolls, or tests. This is okay. It's not anything that's like to write home about. I don't know the points on it, but if it were really cheap and you just didn't have anything else to spend the points on, sure, why not? Um, but otherwise, I don't really see a big use for it. None of the generic characters are really like big smash characters. All of our smash characters are named characters, right? So
Yep.
um, I don't really see much of a use for this one. This next one is pretty decent though. War Tempered Artifice, +3 strength on all melee weapons. So that's pretty sick because now you can have that master crafted power weapon be strength 8. Okay. It's a power fist with an extra attack. That's what it is. You could also have a power fist that's strength 11, right? So, which is pretty good too. So, really interesting stuff there. Um, Adamantine Mantle reduces incoming damage by 1 unless it's Torrent or Melta, which reduces to 1 damage. Again, like our characters shouldn't be being attacked too crazily, with Melta and Torrent weapons. You know what I mean? Like -1 damage is pretty good, but again, um, unless the opponent has a lot of precision, it's kind of okay.
Yep.
And then Forged in Battle, change a single hit or save roll to a 6 after seeing the result for a unit once per turn. This could potentially be decent because you could make something a crit hit and either auto wound or something like that. But again, depending on points, I think the best of these is War Tempered Artifice.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing really that screams awesome to me in the enhancements here.
Hmm.
They're kind of take it or leave it, but
Yeah.
War Tempered Artifice is good to give to something in a Black Templar list.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, stratagems: the Crucible of Battle. +1 to wound against the closest enemy unit in the shooting or fight phase. So this is the fight phase as well. That's pretty spicy because obviously, uh, is it melee as well as shooting? Let's
Yep.
see what what.
Yep. The Crucible Battle works in the shooting and fight phase.
Wow, that's pretty dope because you know obviously you're meleeing the closest thing.
Yep.
So, so I really like that. That's really powerful, and it's good for both shooting and melee, which makes it versatile, right?
Yep.
Um, Onslaught of Fire, +1 to hit the closest eligible target within 12 inches after disembarking from a transport. So we don't have, typically when we're getting out of a transport, it's a melee unit that usually doesn't have a ton of guns that we really want. Or that we really care about. It's all incidental damage, right? But this does make Hellblasters particularly spicy in the Riding Dirty list. So,
Yep.
you
Riding
know,
dirty.
drive-by Hellblastering, and this makes that very good because that's really what you want to do is hello, you know. So, so yeah, I like that one for sure. Burning Vengeance. Unit disembarks after enemy resolves attacks against the transport they are in, and gets a free shooting phase against that unit. That's also really powerful. Um, you can jump out of the transport using this strat to get a free
Mhm.
shot and then onslaught of fire them. Although actually, if onslaught of fire is in the shooting phase, you can't do that because it's
Yeah, you can't do that.
out of phase rules. That would be really gross if you could do that. Probably good that you can't.
But you can combo this with things like Hellblasters so that they potentially could get multiple shots against you.
Yep.
Eh, So, I mean, that's even still getting out of the forcing out a strategic point in the battle and jumping out of a transport with the uh,
Yeah.
out of the transport and blasting your opponent is going to be really good, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. It again, it's one of those that like it doesn't sound flashy, but I think it's pretty good. And then rapid embarkation. Allows an infantry unit within 6 inches of an empty transport at the end of the fight phase to embark, so long as it is not in engagement range or disembarked this turn. So that's important because normally you can get back in a transport uh, as long as it's not the same phase. So, like Eliminators with their move and shoot kind of thing can hop back in a
Mhm.
transport in the shooting phase. But this specifies you can't do it. You can't have disembarked this turn at all. So this is situationally okay. It's kind of one of those things where, are we gonna like try to plan for this? No, but the odd situation where it's like, okay, that might be useful.
Yep. And thing to note with this one is you normally have to be within 3 inches
Yeah,
to be in. This is 6 inches, so that it allows you some leeway there to get back in.
yeah, yeah, a little bit further away, which is nice. All right, and then lastly, immolation protocols gives torrent weapons devastating wounds. So this is pretty good. This makes me want to run Pyreblaster Infernus squads. Um, it's also nice for the sword bros who have the pyre pistols, which is
Hmm.
pretty sweet. Does it make me want to run Stern Guard with the pyre cannon? No. Does it make me want to run Flamestorm aggressors or Pyreblasters in my Crusader squads? Also no. So maybe aggressors, but not
The
Pyreblasters.
aggressors.
Not Pyreblasters in Crusader squads.
Yeah,
Power
no.
Fists. Power Fists. We have a video coming very soon about melee weapons. So it'll probably be out tomorrow, actually. Tomorrow night. I should finish that up tomorrow, and I'll get that out to you guys tomorrow night. So look for that little spicy tidbit there for you. But yeah, aggressors would be a good candidate for this because they have a lot. So would Infernus Marines, obviously. Don't take the. If you're wondering what I'm talking about with Stern Guard, the Pyre Cannon is like D6 plus 1 hits, Strength 6, AP 1, Damage 1. That's terrible. Like, I would rather have the Heavy Bolter with devastating wounds, on the Heavy Bolter, a much longer range, and sustained hits on the Heavy Bolter as well. Um, so yeah. But for the two Flamer squads, yeah,
Yeah, this is really really good on Flamestorm aggressors, because not only does the flamers that they have mesh well with the +1 strength from their detachment rules, so they're going to be hitting on strength 5 rather than 4s. They have 2d6 attacks, and they're twin linked, so you're going to be getting double the ability to fish for devastating wounds on these guys.
yeah.
And strategically, you can. It's 2 CP, so you have to kind of plan around this.
Yeah, I was
But
gonna say it is pretty expensive at 2 CP. You know what else this is good on is Land Raider Redeemer.
yep, definitely
So,
is.
so
But yeah,
that is the Firestorm detachment. Bob, how do you like this detachment overall?
I actually really like that. I haven't built a list for it yet, but it has a ton of different tools for a lot of different things. So yes, you get the assault, so you can advance, still shoot. You got play in actions, +1 strength if you're shooting something close range, which we're typically doing because we're
Hmm.
running melee. But it works really, really well with the Black Templars Impulsors, and really wants you to take a bunch of them because we have the Multi Melta, which
Hmm.
gets the extra strength, which then puts it into the tier that we need it to be in
Yep.
to get that break point, and it allows you to shoot it while you're advancing it, which makes your army really fast. And then using the impulsors, if you really wanted to get out, you could get out as well after
Yeah.
advancing.
Yeah.
Um, but it it synergizes very very well with the impulsor, which is something that is already a good unit. Then you can the number of these stratagems helps out. The Crucible Battle helps out uh, with both shooting and in close combat. So that's great. So
Yep.
that's something that we want in our close combat, which actually makes the Sword Brethren really, really good, because one of their main things is that they're hitting at strength 5 and strength 6 if you have Hellbricht, but if you're taking multiple different units, or if you want it to be good against, say, like a vehicle or a knight or something like that, this will help you put the damage through. Um, you also have the ability to to shoot after being in a transport, which you're presumably already taking with this. There's a lot of different things that you can do with this list, this detachment, and I really, really like it. Impulsors, Land Raider, Redeemers, the Regressors are really good. I mean, Eradicators, Fellblasters, Infernus, all of those units are going to be very, very good. And they're typically units that were already taken in our list.
Yeah.
So
The funny
there's a
thing
lot of
is,
awesome potential.
is outside of this list with aggressors, you want the bolt storms, which, is
Yep.
kind of funny. So it's sort of a reversal. Like, I hope you have six of each different type of of aggressor, in your repertoire. But with the change to aggressors, I actually am considering now picking them back up again. I was going to towards the end of ninth, and then I was like, well, I'll just wait for the edition change and see how they are, because they did get nerfed a little bit at the end of ninth, and then they were dragged into the mud at the beginning of 10th. And now that their power fists are better again, and twin linked,
And that
they
significant point decrease.
they got a nice point drop. Um, they're back on the menu for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So speaking of which, and this is a little bit off topic, but if let's say you don't have the funds to buy 12 aggressors, Bob, um, and you like this
What are you trying to
detachment,
say?
I'm not saying you, I'm saying our viewers, right? Um, so if you are going to settle on one or the other and you like this detachment, you know, how much worse off are you running flame aggressors in any other detachment besides this one?
It does limit you a little bit because I have gotten probably about a half a dozen games since the point drops on them,
Hmm.
and I've really liked because I'm using them in Righteous Crusaders and with Biologus,
Hmm.
and then I give them 10 Hauser's Bones to keep them a little bit durable. So I have a block of aggressors in the middle of the board, and it allows me to be a little bit more strategic with my shooting. So before they are into danger zone, um, but the flame storms are reasonably good as long as you're making sure that you're using them kind of like a Primaris Sword Brethren, because they aren't a hold unit at that point because they want to be up close, they want to be charging in,
Because
where the
it's
blade
only 12
storm,
inches. Yeah.
yeah. So you want to be very aggressive with those guys, moving into and then moving on.
Yeah.
Whereas the bolt storm is more of a take and hold unit that can shoot. So,
Yeah. And you're not going to run the apothecary with the flame dudes because
yeah,
they don't roll to hit. So he's useless with them. Instead, you'd probably take a Gravis captain with them,
yeah.
would be my suggestion. Kitted obviously for melee, and stick a T-bones or something on him, to make him a little more spicy.
Or
Um,
if you're running this particular detachment, then you can put war tempered artifice on.
exactly. Yeah.
So,
Um, and note that it increases the strength of all of his melee weapons. Extra attacks weapons, which is what his offhand thing is. Um, Extra attacks only restricts you to making exactly that number of attacks. You can modify the strength of the weapon, and its AP and whatever else. You cannot modify the number of attacks that you make with the extra attacks, and that's it. So that means like his chainsword gets +3 strength. He's got Teeth of Terra, you
yeah.
know. Um, so um, so real quick, before we move on, I want to get to James' question. He says, "Are Land Raider Crusaders better now with the change to Oath?" I mean, honestly, you are unlikely to be pointing its guns at your Oath target anyway, because you're typically pointing, Oath at the most dangerous unit on the board that you need a damage buff against. Um,
Mhm.
Generally, the Land Raider Crusaders guns are shooting chaff, right? This screen unit in front of me, I got to clear, or those guardians or guardsmen on that objective, right? Stuff that like high volume, low strength, low AP number of shots. can clear off an objective easily. You're not pointing those guns at Terminators unless you have nothing else to shoot them with, right? So, um, yes, in the fact that you just don't get the wound rerolls from Oath anymore. So if you have nothing else to shoot and you're pointing them at Custodian Guard, yeah, it's technically a buff, but ultimately you're probably not pointing this at your Oath target anyway.
Yeah.
So
But overall, in general, we're going to lean into a couple different things as Space Marine players, especially Black Templars players: lethal hits or twin link weapons. Those
yeah,
are going to be the things that we're going to be trying to get as much as we can as.
yeah.
So, so yeah,
So yeah. So what's your overall grade, Bob?
I think this is a solid A, a very solid A.
Yep.
I would almost say A plus on it, but there's the enhancements are a little iffy on it, and you have to really build a particular style of list on it. But it's going to be very good. It gives you the tools that you need for basically everything that you need to be successful in a game, and buffs to close combat, buffs to firing, um, a lot of tricksy things with like rapid embarkation, jumping out and firing, free shooting phases, a ton of different things. So I really like this, but we're gonna get to it. My favorite one,
I
not yet.
I'm gonna give it an A minus, and that's mostly I agree with everything you said, um, but the reason I'm giving it an A minus is aside from the one enhancement, the rest are whatever. They're just nothing inspiring or really interesting about them. The best part of this is the strats and the detachment rule. Which all of the strats are at least usable, and some are excellent. So yeah. So moving on, and I'm sure everyone's thinking, this is the one. This is the one that they're so
This is
excited
it.
about. The Stormlance detachment. This is not the one. This is not the one. So, this is the one that I'm sure all Black Templar players are like, woohoo, advance and charge. We're going to take this all the time. It's the best one by far because now I can advance and charge everywhere. So, yes, you can advance and charge. But honestly, that's the best part about the entire detachment. Everything else is really lackluster, in my opinion. So, let's get into it and find out why. So you can also fall back and charge. By the way, you can advance and charge and fall back and charge, which is helpful. Um, so the enhancements: Fury of the Storm. Mounted character only, gains +1 strength and AP in melee, +2 if they charged. Here's the problem: there's one mounted
Yep.
character in the whole codex. One. And it's the chaplain on bike. And he's not even that good anymore because his ability that buffs the unit or whatever sucks. It's just shooting buff. Like, why is the biker guy buffing the bolt guns? It's stupid. So, okay, we're not running biker chaplains anymore, um, and we're not running outriders. So the next one, Hunter's Instincts, treats the battle round as one higher than it normally is for strategic reserves. Okay, so I can strat reserve my dudes in on turn 1. I mean, that's
I mean,
okay. You
I
know,
mean, it's kind of good, kind
also,
of good.
well, actually, just reading Goonhammer's things, it's only usable on models with the mounted keyword. So, yeah, once again, garbage because there's one mounted character and two mounted units, outriders and ATVs, because they legend everything else. So yeah. Moving
I'm gonna
on.
put I'm gonna put a brief stipulation on all of this. Yes, we know that Ravenwing and Space Wolves exist,
Yeah.
but we're taking this from a Black Templar's perspective.
This
So
is really good for Space Wolves. Let me tell you, this is the Space Wolf detachment. I don't care about
this,
sorry White Scars. This is the Space Wolf detachment.
yeah, this
Um,
is you are gonna have to face that list. So be prepared.
yeah,
But
it will
from
be
Black
good
Templars,
in those. Well, specifically Space Wolves. Not quite as good in Ravenwing, but definitely Space Wolves. So in any case, Portents of Wisdom reroll advance rolls as long as it's leading a unit. All right, that's at least decent, right? Reroll advance rolls. Um, Fainting Withdrawal, shooting when falling back, in addition to being allowed to charge. Again, this doesn't really help with melee. We want to be in melee, right? If we're falling back to charge again, it's to either A, shoot that unit in the meantime, B, charge something else that, like, we're going to shoot that unit and kill it and then murder this other thing in melee, or C, get fights first back onto the same unit, right? Or all of the above. So yeah, this is not very helpful for us. Stratagems. It does get a little better here. Wind Swift Evasion. Unit makes a full 6-inch move after an opponent makes a normal advance or fallback move. So this is a better Devout Push, or what's the Gladius one? I can't remember the name of it. It's basically a better version of that. You can use
Squad Tactics, I
Squad
believe.
Tactics. Yeah, thank you. Um, this is also good for jump pack units. So yeah, not a bad strat. Full throttle, mounted or vehicle unit, at least it gives vehicle, right? Automatically gets max advance distance. Well, unless you're a Brutalis, I don't know too many vehicles that want to advance because remember in this detachment you can't advance and shoot, so that's not very helpful. I mean, I guess it helps impulsors, right? It helps our impulsors. They can advance, to get into position and just make sure that they go the full distance. Um, Blitzing Fusillade. Unit ranged weapons gain assault, plus gain sustained hits 1 if they already have assault. Um, Again, it's okay. There, it has its uses for sure.
Yep.
Um, you know,
I mean,
uh,
it's really sustained hits is kind of like a chaff clear unit,
yeah.
which
But
your outriders already do that.
do Hellblasters? Well, first of all, is this mounted?
I don't believe this one is mounted.
This one is called, what's it called? Blitzing Fusillade. It just says unit, yeah. So, do Hellblasters have assault on
Yes,
their
they do.
weapons? Yes. So this would be good on Hellblasters because more shots like that is always good. Um, so yeah. Uh, Shock Assault. Mounted units reroll charge rolls and gain lance. Again, Outriders are not good, so this is semi-useless. And then lastly, and semi-leastly, Ride Hard, Ride Fast. Again, mounted. Although this is also fly units gain a -1 penalty to hit wound against it. That's useful against jump packs or with jump pack units. We're never gonna have a mounted unit, so yeah, so that's at least useful on jump pack, like our new assault intercessor jump packs, guys.
Yep.
So, thoughts, Bob?
This is a solid F for all of us.
What-
This is a solid F.
Tell us
But
how you really feel.
so
Uh,
this is as much as you want to say that advanced charge is great for us. That's the only thing that's going for it.
you're basically
Uh,
playing with half a detachment
yeah,
if you take this, because the mounted
not
stuff
even.
is literally half the number of strats and like 2 of the stratagems. So it's like basically half a detachment. So now, before I give my rating, I will say that spamming the crap out of jump pack guys and PCS squads would be funny as hell. And it might work for like a meme list. Like, once it might work once at a tournament where you can catch your opponents off guard. Um, but um, yeah, overall, I'm gonna give it a D minus because this is just like it's bad. It's bad
This is an S tier list
for
with
Space
Space
Wolves.
Wolves.
Yeah.
This is probably
So
the most
so
broken detachment in the Space Marine Codex with Space Wolves, though.
well, I don't know about. I wouldn't call it broken.
No, those units are going to be disgusting. Ride
It's
hard, ride fast with them, plus shock assault, plus advance and charge. Literally, all of them are going to be in your lines turn one.
yeah,
Turn one.
yeah.
And you're going to have to be able to kill and weather 3 full units of Thunder Cav first turn.
But
If
you're
you
not
can't do
gonna.
that, you're going to lose.
But you're not gonna kill and weather it with this detachment. So
No, you're
let's
not.
move on. So moving on.
This one's
This
mine.
this is the one that we are actually the most excited to talk about. So Bob, why don't you take it away?
Oh, yes. So it's the Vanguard Spearhead.
Surprise!
Oh,
Bet you weren't
so
expecting that.
yes. So
I too am the most excited about this one.
competitively, do I think it is as good as the Firestorm? No. But, and I'll get into it, this has so many meme potential. I just love it. I can't not love this. And you could probably make it really good with our standard Black Templars lists just by virtue of what it does.
Mm-hmm.
So, what it gives you is -1 to shooting and cover over 12 inches from the enemy. So, that's Raven Wing stuff that we are know and love. We don't
Raven
use
Guard.
them. Yeah, the Raven Guard. So, yeah, it's Raven Guard stuff. Now, I have in the past run a ton of Phobos peekaboo lists, which I really kind of love. I kind of like the sneaky feel of lists. That's just kind of the way I like playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
I like sneaky, strategic, being very what's the word? Um, well, strategic with my movement, that type of thing.
Strategery.
Yes, much strategery. And the reason why this is a meme is the first enhancement that we're going to talk about, the Blade Driven Deep. For
Yep.
a mere 25 points, you can give a character and a unit that it's leading infiltrate. Let that sink in.
Let's explore the possibilities of that. We now interrupt your regularly scheduled enhancement discussion to talk about all the synergies that this has. So let's list off the units, Bob. You ready? That we can
All
use this
right.
with.
So I'll start with the smaller ones. You can do aggressors
Mm-hmm.
into
Yep.
your opponent's line right
Yep.
away.
But more exciting
Not
than
bad.
that. Yeah, not bad.
Even more exciting, you can do Terminators, durable Terminators
Block
into your
of
opponent's line.
10 Terminators.
And the most meme of them all, 20-man Primaris Crusader squad in your opponent's line.
Yep.
Now,
with Helbricht.
With Helbricht, you could also do it with a Castellan. Add it on to there, which is where you
you'd
would
have
get
to
the
do.
you would have to do to get the infiltrate.
But yeah, but because he can join a squad with Helbricht, you can get a named character in there as well. Now, yes, you could also do this with Sword Bros, but I think the best potential is the Crusader Blob because it's they're hilariously huge and scary looking, and they can absorb casualties. The Sword Bros are going to get super targeted and might not survive enough firepower to be intact enough to deal enough damage, but the Crusaders definitely will. So,
So you could
yeah.
put them there's also meme things that you can do depending on how you do. And one of my lists, I will admit, you can burn me at the stake.
You put
I
a witch
took a
in there, didn't you?
Primaris Librarian
What is wrong with you?
on it. So not only do you have the 20-man Primaris or the Crusader
I
squad,
can't believe this
20
guy.
man,
I
as a
can't believe
4+
this.
invul
And you
save.
and you called me a heretic because I have a
It's so
Necron army
stupid.
and a Tzeentch Demons army. You called me a heretic.
To be fair, my first list has Hellbrick and Castellan. But like
I
it's so
can't believe
stupidly
you.
good.
I
It's
can't
so
believe you.
stupidly good.
I can't
So
believe
here's the
you.
thing. Like there's a lot of people that kind of talked about it. Like Ardor talked about put him in the center of the board, give him cover, all that fun stuff. I'm like, yeah, you could do that depending on how the deployment goes. Or you can stick it literally on the deployment line as your first drop. And now your opponent has to stay within outside of 9 inches of you because they can't deploy within 9 inches of you. So you force them in the back of their deployment zone
I thought you had
because you could.
to. I thought you had to. Infiltrators have to stay 9 inches away from their edge. Let's look that up real quick. Let's look that up real quick.
Yeah,
Infiltrators, because
potentially, but you can get really close to it.
yeah, you can get 9 inches away and just force
Yeah,
them to um,
and
infiltrate.
and then you can move that line all the way across long
Um,
distances and block them up. It's
yeah,
just so
it's
memey.
9 inches horizontally away from enemy deployment zone and all enemy models. But it basically forces them, there screws them out of their own dudes. Plus, now you have this unit that's literally going to charge them turn one, uh, and they can re-roll charges. So, and they have Hellbricked. So now with lethal hits. So now, let's say you go first. You have 20 Crusaders with lethal hits hitting on threes, on lethal hits on fives, and they have like I forget how many attacks it is. It's what is it? 13 guys times 5, 13, right? Yeah, times 5. They have 65 chainsword attacks.
Plus the four
Plus
with
the
the
4 power
power,
fists.
and,
Plus
and then
Helbricht. Plus Helbricht and the Castellan. Like, you're going to probably kill anything that you touch on turn one. Now, you can't bump their AP like you can in Righteous Crusaders, but it's still hilarious. I mean, if you go first, just like pick a unit and destroy it. Oh, and you can get rerolls to hit from Oath, so you can fish for fives.
yep, yep.
So,
Or you can multi-charge if you
James said thank you.
have a
It's
bunch.
15. It's 15, guys. I knew it was not quite enough, which is 75 attacks.
Yeah,
75
it's just
attacks.
so stupidly broken. And if you wanted to get super memey, because I'm all about the memes with this one. So you have that unit, you infiltrate it up, then you just have Grimaldus just plotting himself into the center of the board again with a second
With
20-man
another 20
unit,
man unit.
which now has -1 to shooting and cover because it's going to be with it outside of 12 inches because your opponent is now deploying back because they don't want to get raped by the 20-man unit.
Yep.
Which I have to be careful about my words because I think that's a censored YouTube word. But anyway, yeah, it's just going to be gross. And you have a 5+ feel no pain. It's just stupid.
Yeah.
So that's a
So,
blade driven deep for 25 points. It's
25 points.
ridiculous.
Yep.
It's
So,
ridiculous. But as mentioned by other people, where was it? Deathwing
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 Knights.
Knights are going to be stupidly hard to kill, and
Yeah.
you will have to watch out for this
Yeah.
going forward because they reduce your damage by 1. They're essentially better Terminators.
Yeah.
But they are also going to cost you that player in excess of 500 points for the
Yeah.
models. So
Yeah.
if you can mitigate that unit,
I think the answer to them is a 20-man Crusader squad. For
they're
real,
not going to
because
kill them, but they're going to.
well, you drown them in attacks. You only need an extra AP to hit their invul. They don't well, the power fists do, but the chain swords don't care about your -1, damage. So so yeah, or are they -1 to wound? I can't remember. Which one is it?
Or which ones?
For the Deathwing, are they -1 to wound or is it -1 damage? I can never
-1
remember.
damage.
It's damage. Yeah, so chain swords
Yep.
don't care about that. We're gonna lethal hits you. Yeah. So that sounds like some math hammer fun that I'll have to do at some point. Um, so let's now get to the other ones, which are also pretty solid.
Yep. So you have Ghost Weave Cloak, which gives stealth and lone operative to a unit, which we're probably not going to use very often because most of our units are attached to units to buff.
Hmm.
We have Execute and Redeploy, where a Phobos unit can make a 6-inch move after firing, basically like Eliminators can.
Hmm.
And then the other one that's really good for 30 points, which is weird that it's more expensive than the Blade Driven Deep, but it's 30 points. A Shadow War Veteran. It's basically the Vect ability to increase the cost to a battle tactics stratagem by 1 CP. So you don't have to take
A Calidus,
a Calidus anymore. You can put it on that lieutenant that you're going to be taking anyway.
who got a huge
And
buff, by the way. If you don't know, the lieutenant with combi weapon, his reroll, you basically with his ability, you pick an objective, and then any enemy units within range of that objective, you get rerolls to wound of 1 from your whole army. Now, well, previously it had to be within 6 inches of the lieutenant. Now he just has to be on the board, and your whole
yep.
army gets it. So he got a major buff from that, and then now this gives him the Calidus, ability, which means you don't have to take a Calidus either. So you can double up and
The only thing that
same
the
turn.
Calidus does now, if you do this, is you can't redeploy him automatically. But you can with the stratagem, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
Uh, so the stratagems, a deadly prize. So basically, what you're doing, you're sabotaging your objective. So enemy takes D3 mortal wounds on a 2+ if they move within 3 inches of the objective.
Hmm.
And I believe how they worded it is it's not a one-time use, so it's any time they come within range of the objective.
Yep.
So that's a nice little thing that you can do. Surgical strike. You give melee precision to a unit, which is one of the ways that you kill very important Death Star units, like the Dark Angel Dread Knight unit. So you want to get rid of some characters, slap a surgical strike on them, give
Yep.
precision, game over.
Yep.
Strike from the Shadows. Also a very excellent killy stratagem. This one's +1 ballistic skill and AP if the target is over 12 inches, and it also forces a battle shock if they lose a model. So this is a way to actually make grav cannon devastators not bounce.
Because they get that extra AP. They'll also get +1 to hit, which is great too.
Yep,
So yeah.
hitting
Um,
on threes.
yep. So yeah, I like that one a lot for them, specifically for them.
Also really, really good on Bolt Storm aggressors because you're typically going to be firing at stuff that's over 12 inches, and that will give you potentially, if you shoot at the closest target, AP2 on bolter weapons, which are firing, I think, on average size unit 45 shots with the
Yeah,
blast.
something like that.
So that's going to make hitting on twos, fours to wound, or fours to wound on most Marines with AP2 damage. So I mean that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Calculated feint. So it's a normal move of 6 inches if charged. If a charge is declared against them, it's a flat 6 inches if Phobos. So D6 for normally. This is really, really good. Really, really good.
Yeah.
Now you have to be careful with this though, because if you use this and you move off of an objective next turn, you're obviously going to lose the objective. But if you use it on a screening unit, you can move outside of that charge range and they will fail, which is really strong.
Yeah. This is another one of those that's like it's not flashy or fun sounding, but it will win you games. Because now you're going to keep your unit that's, you know, uh, like infills or something like that, that's, holding a back objective, or, you know what I mean? It's going to keep those units more out of harm's way, from getting annihilated by something charging them. So yeah.
And finally, we have guerrilla tactics, which is put an infantry unit, any infantry unit, or 2 phobos units into strategic reserves at the end of the enemy fight phase if outside of 3 inches of the enemy. This is how you get your lieutenant off the board if you need him to, or something else. Maybe
Yeah.
you did your damage with your memed Primaris Crusader squad, and now you need it someplace else. Okay, let's
Yep.
just take it right off the board, put it someplace else.
Yep.
Because you can use this, presumably, on turn 1 and just move it on turn 2. It comes back on
Yep.
someplace. So this detachment is so ridiculous in the amount of meme that you can do. It just
It seems a lot of fun. And like I know people are like, "Oh, well, we're not a sneaky chapter, blah blah blah." But you know what? Like, here's the thing: is uh, the sneaky units, like the Phobos, the Eliminators, the infills and whatnot. Most of the things in this, like, don't really like they benefit other units better. Because I don't want my Phobos units in combat. Several of them already have infiltrate. Um, so it's not super beneficial for them. It's actually more beneficial for the non-sneaky units. Grimaldus with a 20-man blob marching up the board with a 5+ feel no pain, cover, and you know, what's the stealth, basically stealth. Um, you know, uh, while they're outside of 12 inches of enemy guns, is going to make that squad insanely durable. Your opponent's probably just not even going to shoot at it because it's not worth it. Um,
mhm.
and then something that we haven't mentioned yet is your Lancers sitting there in the backfield with cover and -1 to hit, is a real durability boost for them. Um, it lets you sit there and have free cover whenever you want, and then stack AOC on top of it, which is really going to help their survivability. And they don't mind sitting in the back because they've got big 72-inch guns.
Yep.
So, yeah, so it really does. It helps your Land Raider on first turn, if it gets caught out in the open, or whatnot. If you want to have a Land Raider with Crusaders, or not Crusaders, sorry, Sword Bros in it. Um, there's a lot of possibilities with this, and I um I like this a lot. It's a great detachment that has a lot of synergies with units that we already have, and that other people don't, right? So things like the Crusader PCS squad, 20-man, like almost nobody else can do that with this.
Yep.
And it's really hilarious, and it's a really scary squad with Helbrecht and a Castellan. So, yeah. So Bob, what is your overall grade for this one? And I think
For
we,
for us, this is a solid A plus. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. And
yeah,
one of the things with this, and you can totally meme and do the things that I was talking about and I'm gushing over and all that stuff. But one of the best things about this detachment is you can take the Righteous Crusader list that you currently are running right this second and plop it in Vanguard Spearhead, because most of our stuff is good data sheet stuff.
yeah, yeah,
And you won't lose anything. You
yeah,
will gain, because this gives us a little bit more tools across shooting and close combat and movement to do whatever you need to do
yeah,
in the battle. Now, 4+ uphold, or I'm sorry, 6+ feel no pain with a hold is slightly better than cover and -1 to shooting. And mathematically, someone did the math already on it. But
Especially because you can add cover on top of that. Like you can
yeah,
be in actual cover and get that. And smokescreen exists. So
but all of our stuff is geared to close combat, where this actually will give us something for shooting if we need to from strike from the shadows, and forces the battle shock. So that's really nice. It gives us the ability to be strategic on uh, uh, disengaging from uh, a charge. You can move things into guerrilla tactics.
yeah,
It's just a ton of things that it's really good at. You don't care if you're in cover when you're in deployment. It's also very easy on the new player because maybe you're not very good at deploying. Okay, this is very forgiving.
yeah,
You don't care.
right.
You already get cover
So
no matter where you are.
well, almost no matter where you are.
Well, you have to be outside of 12
12,
inches.
yeah. So I'm gonna give this a solid A. And I think competitively, it's actually a pretty competitive one as well. And I think this is one that a lot of people are sleeping on competitively. It's not the big flashy Iron Hands one or the up close and personal assault Firestorm one. But I think people are sleeping on this competitively, and especially with Black Templars, we'd be able to surprise a lot of opponents with this. So, moving on, we have one more to discuss, and that is the First Company Task Force. Now, at the sound of it, that sounds like, oh yeah, let's give me all my Terminators and my Sword Bros and my Vanguard vets. Wait, oops, they went in the dumpster bin because they suck. Um, they did dumpster the foot-based ones. They're just gone. The regular ones, the jump pack ones, still suck. Nothing new there. And so this detachment, um, the premise of like a first company focused thing, yeah, sounds good. The execution, not so much. Real quick too, before we get into this, I do want to answer James' question. He says, "Why doesn't the EC have lone op?" So this is something I see a lot of people asking about this, and this is something I don't really understand. Why do you want the Emperor's Champion to have lone operative? He's a melee focused character who is not especially durable as far as characters go. And some people have said, well, what about the Lion? Yeah, the Lion is a Primarch who's tough 9 and 10 wounds with a 2+ save and a 3+ invul and -1 to wound. The Lion can be a lone op and be melee oriented. A guy with 5 wounds and a 4+ invul, not so much. That's tough 4. He has no business being a lone operative, in my opinion, because you need him in combat. And when he's in combat, if he's a lone operative, he can just get pegged by an entire unit. Versus if he's a leader of a unit, unless they have precision, they have to chew through the unit before they can even get to him. And on top of that, um, Sword Bros ratchet him up to 11.
Yeah.
So,
And lore based, he wants to be around his brethren because
yeah, he's trying to
they also
inspire them.
yeah inspire
Yeah,
him to better deals. So,
yeah.
I mean, I can see why someone wants lone op on him, but you really don't want him. He
Like
can gain buffs from everywhere.
thematically, maybe, but rules wise, it doesn't make any sense. Anyway, continuing on with the first company detachment. So its detachment rule extremist level threat is a once per game you can have the old oaths back. But I'm pretty sure, is it only for the I don't know if it's only, I don't think it's only for the veteran units. Um, which, by the way, what
Yeah,
GW
it's a
considers,
whole army.
yeah, what GW considers veteran units or first company units for this are Terminators, Stern Guard, Vanguard, Blade Guard. That's it. Not even the company heroes, I don't think, even though they're likely to be first company. Obviously, not our Sword Bros. I doubt they'll get that keyword, even though they would be first company. Um, so yeah, so anything that keys off of veterans is going to be those units. Right. So moving on, the enhancements. The first one is Imperium Sword. It adds 1 to the attacks of all the bearer's melee weapons. Meh, not super great. Rights of War improves a Terminator character's OC by 1. Oh boy. Hopefully that one's free because I can't see spending any points on that ever. Um, and Iron Resolve gives the model a Feel No Pain 5 plus. So all of these three have a second ability that once per game you can trigger a bonus infect that improves their effectiveness. For those three, it improves it passes it to the squad they're with. Okay, so +1 attack on one character is garbage for the most part, but passing it to a whole squad, okay, all right, that's not bad. Um, +1 attack for a block of Termines or a +1 attack for a block of uh, Primaris Crusaders is pretty decent. Rights of War is still garbage. I mean, yes, OC can potentially win you a game, but I cannot fathom spending points on that for a once per game thing. And then a once per game Feel No Pain is solid, but it's not, for us who are like, well, we can just get it all the time with Grimaldus or Uphold the Honor. you know,
Yeah.
it's a little like, okay. And then the last one, the last enhancement is called Fear Made Manifest, which causes enemy units that fail a battle shock test within 6 inches of the bearer to lose a model. Um,
Yeah.
that one, its once per game thing is increases the number of destroyed models from 1 to 3. Also, pretty much useless. So,
So, things to note on here: all of our enhancements do pretty much the same thing and do them better.
yep, this is very true. So stratagems, they have Armor of Contempt, of course, and the rest of them are all limited to veteran units, which makes them incredibly situational. So Duty and Honor gives you sticky objectives, so long as you had a veteran unit on when you use it. That's actually good, but you provided did you have a lot of veteran units in this list, because otherwise, you know, um, it's not going to be very good. Heroes of the Chapter gives a veteran unit of your choice +1 to hit, and if it's below half strength, picks up +1 to wound as well, which is a solid melee buff, um, especially for a unit like Terminators with Thunderhammers. Getting +1 to hit on them is very nice. Um, but again, it's only on veteran units, right? So no putting this on Sword Bros, no putting this on Primaris Crusaders, anything like that. You'll get the Orbital Teleportarium to put one of your Terminator units into strategic reserves at the end of your opponent's fight phase. Situationally okay. And then from here, it gets a little worse. So, Terrifying Proficiency requires your veterans units to not only kill an enemy in melee, but do it in the same turn it charged, and in exchange forces all enemy units within 6 inches to take a battle shock test. What? Who? Who thought this was a good idea? That's terrible. And then last and sort of least is, although that one's pretty awful, I think this one's actually better than Terrifying Prosophy, is Legendary Fortitude reduces incoming damage by 1, which sounds great, but it only works in your opponent's fight phase on a veteran unit that was charged. So you have to be charged, it has to be a veteran
Yep.
unit, and it's only in your opponent's fight phase. That's so situationally just okay.
Garbage.
Yeah. So, frankly, unless you just want to run like a crap load of Terminators, um, or your Deathwing, and even then, I think the Vanguard one is better for Deathwing than this is. Honestly, this is just really kind of meh. Um, I'm gonna give this a C minus, I think.
Yeah,
It has
I think
some play, but so it's not completely awful, but nothing in it is inspiring me to want to take it. That's my thing.
honestly, I think this is just. I think I can be okay with a C minus. I'm more leaning toward a D plus, but everything it does, I can get out of the Gladius or
Yeah,
Righteous Crusaders,
yeah,
and
yeah. I can get more out of Righteous Crusaders. Like
and it's
Righteous Crusaders is
very
much better than this.
restrictive.
Yeah, yeah. Reaver says pretty generous. I'd give it a D or an F.
I want to give it a D. I want to give it a D. I want to be nice with those two, but I'm going with the D. This is
You went
is
down to a
really
D.
bad. It's
Yeah.
bad. It's bad. Now,
I was
with that
trying to
being
be I
said,
was trying to be optimistic, I guess.
no, we're never taking this. I will say though, it does give the Blade Guard veterans
A
a
chance to
semblance,
a semblance
a,
of hope.
a make them kind of like Sword Brethren,
But you're
because
gonna
then
want to
they can
have to
leave.
take like 3 units of 6 to really make it even worth it. Who has
Yeah,
18 Blade Guard?
I do, but let's not talk about it.
All right. So now that we move on from that debacle, we've graded them all, given you our opinions on them. Um, the final question, Bob, is how do they stack up against Righteous Crusaders? Where does Righteous Crusaders fall in this mix? And are we realistically going to be taking these on a regular basis competitively over Righteous Crusaders?
I think Righteous Crusader is going to be absolutely just fine. That I've been taking that question for 2 days now, and I have not changed in my opinion of it. Righteous Crusaders still has all of the tools that we need to be successful in the game.
Yep.
Simple as it is. People are talking about, okay, well, we lost rerolls to wound on Oath. Well, that was one of the strengths. Well, we were already leaning really hard into lethal hits and twin linked
Hmm.
and things that already had innate rerolls anyway, like lancers and things of that nature. Now, I understand that not everyone has lancers and we're using lesser things for that, but there's still a lot of tools in the book with twin linked, a lot of tools in the book with lethal, or we can get lethal from differing things like the Biologus or the
Castellan.
Castellan.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
and we could just
a
add the
vow.
lieutenant.
Or a vow.
Yeah,
You know,
the vow,
we have the
exactly.
vow. We have fervent. If you don't want to run the vow as your vow for that game, run. You can pop it on a unit with fervent. Including like a Crusader squad where it's gonna be great with that number of volume of attacks. I mean, who doesn't love punching a knight down with chainswords?
Yep.
You know,
So
so
what
yeah,
one of the things I do think I like about this book though is it gives you an option to try some other rules that are not Righteous Crusader that are thematic to the way that you want to build your list. So if
right.
you want to play a meme list like Vanguard, which you can, or you could
I don't
take
even
your
think it's
current
really
list.
even that memey, honestly. Like, I think it
It's
has
not.
real
It's
play. And same thing with the Firestorm. Like, I think Infernus Marines are really cool. Who doesn't love flamers? And but they don't really like outside of just the strength of their data sheet, they don't have any real synergies with any of our rules in Righteous Crusaders, but they work
Mhm.
amazing in the Firestorm one. So if you want to run, a Redeemer and some Infernus guys and like a bunch of flame stuff, that's a great, detachment for you. So, there's I think you're right. I think it gives some alternative options to try some new stuff and try out a different style of list. Um, and we've got two really good options, really three if you include the Ironstorm one. I'm not as keen on that one. I know it's a strong list, but it's hard to make it feel very templary. I mean, sure, if you want to run a lot of dreadnoughts, go for it. That's a great way to do it. People have always loved in Templars running a lot of dreadnoughts, so that's the list to do it in, or one of them. But yeah, I agree. I think Righteous Crusaders, yeah, losing the reroll wounds on oaths hurts for sure. But we have the tools, probably more so than almost any other army, to compensate for it. We have a ton of ways to get lethal hits. We have a ton of ways to, get easier lethal hits, right? We have durability. We have speed. When
Mhm.
we need it.
Or
It and
you could get
flexibility.
sustain hits if you need it.
And
Um,
yeah, and we have the flexibility. That's the other
yep.
thing. We have the flexibility to choose things on the fly. And so Righteous Crusaders is still a top-notch detachment for us, and we're still going to be looking at it as one of the best competitive options for us.
Yep.
So,
I would say that the Righteous Crusaders and Firestorm are probably going to be the best for us, Black Templar, competitively,
mhm,
and with a slightly less on the Vanguard, just because in general there's some counters to it in general with the Raven, the Vanguard detachment. But then you also have the Gladius. The Gladius is still the same as it was before, and that's still a good potentially detachment. But I still think that Righteous Crusader is better than the Gladius. So your main three that you're really going to be in a competitive tournament style list is going to be Righteous Crusaders, Firestorm, and Vanguard. And in my personal opinion, in that order.
yeah, yeah. So, so that's a wrap there, guys. That covers all the detachments. Our thoughts on those, how they compare to our current index detachment. I do want to make sure that we shout out to our dice partner, baronofdice.com. He has more and more different kinds of dice every day. Make sure you use IN40K as your discount code to save a little bit of money and support us. We've got implausible nature exclusive dice that only Baron of Dice carries. They're really awesome, and they come with square corners, so they're going to roll better. And if you are a Patreon member of ours, we have Patreon exclusive dice as well. So you need a special code to make the price normal. And yeah, if you want to check out our Patreon, there's a link down in the description. We got a lot of great benefits for our patrons, including free merch and special roles in our Discord. Um, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know it's late, and but it's been a blast as always. So yeah. That's all we got for now. I like I said, I do promise we have more videos in the pipeline. Um, I uh, I want to I want to apologize. We have had a bit of a drought of videos. We're kind of in limbo while we're waiting for the codex. We don't want to put out something that becomes irrelevant as soon as the
Yeah.
codec drops. Also, I was on vacation week, not this past week, but the week before. So I was off the mainland in Hawaii, so wasn't able to do anything then. But we're back to it. I should have the next video give you the teaser on the title. It's about the best melee weapon to equip on your sergeant characters. So that's coming up. Look for that tomorrow night. And Until next time, you guys have a great evening, a great morning for our UK folks, and thanks again for tuning in.